Hi, I'm Michael Abels, and I'm a composer.
Hi, Michael. It's truly an honor to meet with you on behalf of BUTI. Let me start off by this, that what are you the most excited to experience in Tanglewood?
I think I'm the most excited to just feel the energy of what Tanglewood is. It's such a sacred space, and I've never been here. And it was actually a goal of mine to be here when I was a young musician, but it didn't happen then. And so I'm really glad that it's happening now.
You know how much inspiring that going to be for our students. I would like to ask, where would you say your interest in music came from?
So my earliest memories are of music. Music affected me even as an infant in the cradle. It's one of those memories that's so old that you're not even sure if it's a memory. But I remember hearing Griegs in the Hall of the Mountain King because my grandmother had a phonograph record that she would play that included that piece. And why do I remember that piece? Because it terrified me and I would cry. And none of the adults knew why I was crying, but it's because that music's so terrifying. And it's really kind of ironic that now part of what I do in my professional life is to use music to terrify people. So Grieg taught me well, I guess.
Wow. So you found your way to film scoring through that, and that's a wonderful story to share, to be honest. From your perspective, I wonder what fundamentally you think distinguishes film scoring from composing for the concert hall.
Well, it's both everything and nothing. It's nothing in the sense that when it comes to coming up with a creative idea in that moment of inspiration, it's still about making something up and kind of listening to the internal voice about what is present and having to begin kind of without questioning that idea in order to it's just the active generation or creation. But the expectations of each genre are very different. In a concert hall, the composer is in fact the storyteller. I believe that all music, even music that is not titled in a programmatic way, all music is really storytelling because um, time is the canvas of music. All music takes place in time. And because of the passage of time, there's therefore a journey. And the question is, what is the journey that the listener goes on during the music, and what images occur to them, and what emotional response do they have over time? And for each of us listeners, that journey is different and unique to our own experience, and yet we're all having it together. And I think that that's really the power of live music and why we all love it. But in media music, the story is in the hands of the storyteller, either the writer or the director or a combination. And they have a vision of how that story should be told, and that is their responsibility. So the composer's job is to be really not only to be a creative person to contribute to that storytelling, but also in effect to be a consultant. That is to give the director and showrunner options about how to tell the story musically and allow them to make excellent choices that tell the story in the way they want it told. So the ultimate curation of that music, even though I'm creating it, the curation of which parts of that end up being the story or being in the story or contributing to the story is left up to the storytellers.
Your work carries this intuitive sensibility, and I wonder, how did you manage to nurture that intuition in your process? How do you find it recognizable?
Well, I'm very complimented that you think that that's true of the music that I write, and so thank you. I think all artists are. You have to. There is a way in which you have to trust your intuition. It is ultimately in the creative process all you have, and the minute the result of your intuition hits the world, it's subject to a lot of other intuition. But that's not just other people. Um, that's also your own judgment, let's say, which is maybe not your intuition, but rather your curation. It's your we all have what I call the curative mind, which is actually the logical, the judging mind. And the minute you have an idea, if you're not aware of your judging mind, just think about how you got dressed today. There was a voice that said, "Wear this, not that." That's your curator. And when a creative artist has an idea, the first thing that happens is your curator says, "That's great," or "That's terrible." And you can't turn that voice off. It's an important part of helping us function in the daily world. But it's not that's not the intuitive voice. The intuitive voice is the one that's more right brain, the one that says, "This feels right," and doesn't have a sense of maybe why it feels right. And so developing a sense of knowing which part of your artistic sensibility to trust in every decision, I think is the essence actually of being an artist. And then also knowing how to take other people's feedback about how they're responding to things and being able to hear it in a way that is artistic rather than judgmental, let's say.
I feel that this intuition brings a lot of unknown to artists' lives, and
Yes.
just embracing it is just a matter of fact. And probably for young artists, that's very terrifying at some point, and they don't know how to navigate that.
Well, embracing intuition is always terrifying. Terrifying is too dramatic a word, I think. It doesn't need to be terrifying, but it's scary because it involves vulnerability. And vulnerability is always a little scary because there's the possibility that we could be hurt or revealed to be wrong or not good enough by some estimation. And that never goes away in artistic sensibility. The question is whether all you can do is get used to it so that it's not, it doesn't feel like a life-ending or career-ending or ego-ending threat, but simply a part of the process. And there's no way to do that but simply have the experience of, yes, this is the scary part. And then after the scary part comes the negotiation and the massaging of the idea. And then at some point we have, a result. And each of those parts are as necessary as every other part. And it is very possible that an idea that you have is not received as well as you received it yourself when you got it. And yet, what is also possible is that an idea you had that you didn't even think was particularly interesting is one that blows up in the world and is just the thing that the world needed. And either of those are equally possible. And so it's important for an artist to have this full perspective as they deal with the challenging, scary part, and not let themselves feel like something that didn't work in the past means that the new thing will not work. Each idea is a new possibility of expression.
You also mentioned that the piece that is experienced by different people, it also opens up to different interpretations and different feelings ultimately. I wonder how you use music to evoke deeply human emotions in such an experimental setting.
Well, I think, for me, the constant fascination about music is that it evokes emotions. I find that music is the art that most ideally or most effectively generates emotions. Of course, I'm biased as a composer, but that's the fascination I've had with music, and to be able to, it's like creating emotion out of music to me is like the way chefs approach creating a meal, with equal parts experience and intuition, and to get the flavors just right. And I feel like that's my, I really can't cook, but with music, I feel like I'm a chef. And the other thing is that even though I strive to really evoke emotion in a way that's authentic and three-dimensional, each person's going to experience that emotion a little differently. And that part that's out of my control is actually a part that that I relish, because sometimes someone will say to me, "Oh, I heard this piece of music you wrote and it made me think of this, and I wondered if you were inspired by that." And often it's something I was not inspired by, but when I hear them say it, I can hear the relationship instantly. And I love that. I feel like yes, I was inspired by that, even though I didn't know I was. I mean, it's a shared human experience. And how can I say, oh, if you've heard something so clearly, how can I say, oh, I wasn't inspired by that? That's I don't feel like that can really be true. I must have been inspired by it in a subconscious way that we share the human experience. So anyway, how I create emotion, some of it is actually very, left brain and technical about the play of consonance and dissonance and harmony and rhythm against each other. And there are definite, relationships in that. But then, even though you strive to learn those things and feel like you have you really want to have a great set of tools. To take the chef analogy, you want to have the very best tools to do your work, but then it's how you use them and how they're effective in your hands that really creates the ultimate product.
It's interesting that every question you answer just lands me on this word of unbound, which is the name of the song, the music that is going to be performed. I wonder, how did you feel about the new arrangement, and how these were all about your individual processes, but when it comes to collaborating with different composers, how does that go for you?
Well, so what we're going to be hearing at Tanglewood is a concert band arrangement of a piece I originally wrote for orchestra called Unbound. And it's a tribute to Jesse Owens, the Olympic athlete. And it's definitely meant to evoke images of Owens earning his 4 gold medals. And he was a track and field athlete. And so he was able to, using just his body, and create the illusion of him flying through the air, which was not actually an illusion. He flew through the air. And that's very inspiring to me as someone who I hope to come back possibly as an Olympic athlete. Won't happen in this lifetime. But until then, the way that I can embody that is through creating that image in music. And so the orchestral piece I'm very proud of, but it's because of the power of an athlete. A concert band arrangement seems like a very natural outgrowth of that expression. And Peter Stanley Martin is a genius concert band arranger. And because of that, this arrangement is premiering, and I have yet to meet him. But that is completely fine because of the power of written music. And we don't really value the power of written music in our society as much as we ought to, because our notation system, which has been around for hundreds of years now and has all sorts of problems in capturing the essence of music rather than just the notes, it still manages to convey so much that artists can collaborate using written music and not even have to speak to each other about the music because so much of it is present. And so Peter took everything that I intended in the score and he realized it in this other ensemble, and the arrangement is perfect. And when he first sent it to me, I didn't give him any feedback except to say, this is great.
I would like to open up to this struggles that my young artists experience about how they can dedicate themselves to different pathways. And I wonder if you ever felt that uncertainty, and how did you navigate it?
So that's a great question. It's the life of an artist is nothing but uncertain. I'm sorry to say that, but it's better to hear it now. I feel like I have a lot to say about that because I'm a person I'm a professional composer. That's what I do. But it took me many years to get to where that was my primary source of income. It took me decades. And if you had told me that when I was a student of the age of a Tanglewood student, that would have been one of the worst things I could have heard. But the key is that even when I was working at other professions, other jobs, I was always really clear that I am a composer. And there were points in my life where most of my friends didn't even know that I'm a composer because I wasn't earning my money doing that. And many of them aren't concert musicians. And therefore, if you've ever tried to explain your instrument and why you're practicing it to a friend of yours who doesn't do that, there's a place in which they just don't get it. But that never changed who I was to myself. I was really clear that I'm a composer. And when I would get a commission, even though those might be several years apart, I would absolutely throw my artistic self into that work. And it was through that, some of those got posted on YouTube, and where they got several dozen views, being concert orchestral music. But one of those views was Jordan Peele, who was looking to direct his first film. And it was out of that that Jordan had the producers hunt me down and call me. And I ended up scoring his film Get Out, which is now a classic film and was a worldwide hit. And so out of that, I was given this amazing career that I had considered to be out of reach for me at the point in my life that it happened. But one of the reasons I was able to be successful at it when it happened was that it was because it was who I had been all along. And so I have a couple things to say to young people about that. One is that being an artist, it's a calling, meaning that it's a spiritual practice. So the practice you do on your instrument is an example of that. You do that regardless of what else goes on in your life because it's just what you do, right? It's not subject to other considerations. And to the extent that you're an artist, you do what artists do regardless of what else happens in your life. And they may be things that you need to do and spend long periods of time devoting to that are worthy, but it doesn't mean that you're not an artist. And it's certainly, just because your W-2 doesn't say artist, doesn't mean you're not an artist. You're an artist when you declare you're an artist. And then the choices you make out of that declaration, I think, are how you express that. And the other thing is that if you declare yourself an artist, you're going to be one, but how you're going to be one, I can almost guarantee you, will not be the picture you have in your mind right now of how that works out. Now, that could be very bad news if you have a really fixed goal of what it looks like. If you have this really fixed goal, you want to be on stage at La Scala. Okay, that's a really great goal for you to hold and pursue and throw yourself into. But it's easy for me to say, probably that's not how it's going to be for you. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to be successful. Here's what I'm saying. I'm saying that think of how fast our world changes. There are people making money, having giant careers today in jobs that did not even exist 10 years ago. Did not even exist. That is only going to continue. Think about how artists make their money today. How that works is totally different than it was 10, 20 years ago. And that's only going to continue. So what you're doing right now is you're essentially training for a job that doesn't exist. And that's scary. But the good news is, think of it that way. Think of that's an exciting journey, that there's a job for you. There's a way that you're going to realize your dreams. And we just don't know what that is yet. And so while you pursue your very focused dream of what it looks like to make it, also be aware of what happens in your world and what the opportunities are that come up for you, and walk through the doors that open to you, because you don't know what's on the other side of that door. And on the other side of those doors is very possible will be the thing that where you express yourself as an artist and you're able to make a living and you find your greatest joy in your life. But you need to be open to that thing may not look like the thing that you were trained that you ought to be hoping for.
You almost answered my final question. It was just all about giving some advices to the students of BUTI that are starting to begin and shape their musical journeys.
Gosh, I think I answered it. I don't have much more to say than that. Like, that's what it is.
You fully covered that. This was very amazing. This was very inspiring. And
Oh,
thank you so much.
You're totally welcome.
You're very great.